Hey, hey, Hang Squad. It's Sharon and Lauren again. Welcome back to Joy of the Hang. Hey, Lauren.
Hey, Sharon, how are you?
I'm great. I'm just great. Every time I get to have a podcast with you, it's the happiest part of my day.
It is, except I have to admit, lately with our unbelievable social lives here in the Sarasota area, I'm starting to feel like Mondays, I'm a little bit on the struggle bus sometimes. I mean, we were out pretty late last night.
Yeah, we don't always record on a Monday, but right now we're recording on a Monday, and yeah, it was a long weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, great weekend, but long weekend. I just feel like there's no longer a weekend or a Saturday or Friday. One day just seems to matriculate into the next day, and we're pretty much out every day, Sharon.
Yeah, well, welcome to Sarasota. in what is it? What are we in? March. Welcome to March already. Can you believe that? It's already March.
I cannot believe that.
Anyway, we have a guest today, so we're excited to welcome Lizzie Thomas to the show. Hey, Lizzie.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
Good. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, we're excited to have you all the way from Maryland.
Yeah, Maryland.
Wow, and you're visiting your mom and dad, right?
So my parents have a place in Longboat Key, but we have renters right now, so we're staying at a cute little hotel in Sarasota just to get away and watch the Orioles spring training and
fun.
Yeah, enjoy the sunshine.
Oh, nice. So how long are you here for?
So we leave tomorrow. We came in Friday, but then my husband and I will be back in April to stay at my parents' place in Longboat Key, and then pretty much whenever we decide to pick up and come back.
So like how many times have you been to Sarasota?
Probably 2 or 3 times a year for the last 7 or 8 years, I'd say.
Oh, wow. And have you ever, I've now lived here with my husband, Florida for going on 4.5 years, but downtown Sarasota about 2.5. Have you ever heard it called Sarasota?
Did you say something about on another podcast? I think.
So I was just curious if you'd heard that.
No.
I'm 53, Sharon's 58, and you're low 30s.
32.
Right? Yeah, 32. Yeah. So I was curious with your demographic, have you heard it called Sarasota?
No, I haven't. But then I heard you say that New Year's Eve they drop a pineapple. Correct. and then I remember my parents telling me that, and I didn't put 2 and 2 together, and I'm sure they don't know anything about that. So I'm gonna have to tell them about the pineapple in Sarasota.
I mean,
your
that's
parents?
Right.
They might know more than you think.
They might. I'll ask them.
Yeah, you never know. So, Lizzie, I want to tell our listeners how you heard about Joy of the Hang.
So
Find us.
I have been a follower of Davis Rowe on TikTok, who is Lauren's daughter, and I just think I have my mornings where after my run, I make my latte and I tell my husband, don't talk to me for 20 minutes. I'm doing a TikTok scroll, and that's what I do. And so I follow a select number of people, and then I'm scrolling on the For You page. But Davis is one of them, and I just think she's great. I think she's hilarious, and I have quite a variety of people that I follow for different reasons. And she just, I don't know, she caught my eye and she's fun. And so then I was like, well, she lives somewhere that my parents have a place, very cool to see, somewhere that you frequent through someone else's eyes. And then saw that she has a really awesome mom who has a style that I just think is so inspiring.
Oh, stop.
I mean it.
Keep going.
I really, really, really am fascinated by fashion and just how everybody, chooses to just go about their day and express themselves. And so it was always fun to see Davis, here and there have Lauren on and just to show their outfits of the days and everything. And then there was a mention of a podcast. And so one thing led to the other. I don't honestly know how it happened. And I was like, Joy of the Hang. Oh my gosh. So, part of my runs or like my cool down walk after my run, I'm so excited when I see a new episode come out.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and certainly, with Davis, that's with all our kids. I mean, we haven't been perfect parents like anybody, but one gift I feel like we both did give our kids is just the gift of allowing them and encouraging them to just be their authentic selves. And it's so important, and you're never going to make everybody happy. Not everybody is going to like you, but how utterly exhausting and brutal to go through life not being true to who you are and trying to, please everybody else. So, yeah, I think it's cool that you like that about her, and then we try and do that together. And I'm glad that we got to meet you, because Sharon and I do this podcast because we like to connect with people, and that's connect with people our age, your age, older than us, because it doesn't matter where you're from or what age you are. You don't need to be famous,
Right,
you
we were just talking about that.
yeah, you have a story to tell, and
right.
and I'm excited, really excited, to have you share your story today, and
Thank you.
yeah, have at it.
Well, and I'm excited that people are actually listening to our podcast, because when you start a new venture, you do it for yourself.
You never
in a lot of
know
ways. You
who's
never know,
listening,
right?
yeah.
And who it's going to reach and who it's going to touch. And I love too that you brought up that you were interested in fashion, and Lauren's become a little bit of a fashion icon, and everybody's always interested to see what she's going to wear around here too. But I love that you're looking to like a more mature woman, and she's giving you, and I hope all of us, permission to express yourself the way you want to express yourself without feeling like there's a certain age when you shouldn't wear something.
Yes, and
right?
and likewise to you, Sharon, your clothing and every event you go to, it's been so cool to follow. So
I'm just not on TikTok.
Yeah, but isn't that so fabulous? Like, you mentioned, our fashion sense, and we're clearly, again, how many times am I going to mention that we're older than you are?
We're older,
but I do the same thing. I scroll through TikTok all the time, and there are lots of women your age and younger in their 20s who I follow, and I love their fashion style, what they put together, and that's totally cool, and I'm totally okay with it, and we'll let anybody know who's listening. I follow and do sometimes, emulate or copy people that are in their 20s or 30s that are younger, because I like their style.
Yep, that's awesome. Yeah,
If you can wear it, rock it.
that's what I say.
Yeah.
Age is just a number, clearly.
It really is. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about today with you is eating disorders. And we're just coming off of National Eating Disorder Awareness Week, which I think ended yesterday.
Yes.
We're recording on March 3rd, and it went through March 2nd. Can you tell us a little bit about your own battle with eating disorder and what your experience was with it?
Yeah, it's very much a part of me. However, it's very much not Lizzie. And so I know that sounds a little, confusing, but my mom has always made sure that I know that, Lizzie is Lizzie, and Lizzie is not her eating disorder. And so, especially when I met my husband, I was 26, and he was like, I didn't meet an eating disorder. I met Lizzie, who I'm in love with from the day I met her in a grocery store, and that's how we met. So, no makeup on, no bra, nothing, like no plan to meet.
What aisle?
The front entrance of the grocery store. He actually owned a private security company, and he's a retired police officer, and so he was actually working a shift at the grocery store. So a man in a uniform caught my eye. But
I love it.
Yeah.
Did he talk to you first, though?
He talked to me first, yes. I actually have a huge tattoo on my leg of a runner, and so I was in shorts at the time, and he came up to me and said, how many miles do you run? And I looked at him like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't know you. And he's like, you're a runner. Like, look at your leg. I'm like, yeah, touche. So we just started chatting, and he got my number, and honestly, it was history since. So, but basically, it's been a journey for me. I was 17 when I was diagnosed with anorexia. So I was the end of my 11th grade year of high school. And it really just started as I told myself I wanted to lose weight. And in my mind, it was just kind of like an afterthought. I had always been at a healthy weight. But I just, I wasn't the skinny friend. I wasn't, didn't feel great in my body. And so I told myself, I had this like epiphany. Oh, just eat less. And I remember thinking that one evening, like, you just eat less. Like, it's so easy. And it's so not easy, but at that time, I had so much drive to lose this weight. And then I kind of forgot about it. I kind of didn't, I wasn't really like tracking calories. I wasn't, it became from basically, I don't know, it was like January or February of my 11th grade year. In 3 months, I lost 35 pounds. So
What was your starting weight before you lost it?
I was about 120. So
you were down to around 90 pounds.
yeah. So and that's a lot of
And you're
weight
how
in a
tall?
short time.
How
I'm
tall?
5'4". So
5'4".
Wow,
She's
yeah.
now 90 pounds. Okay.
So I was very malnourished, and it happened so quickly that it became out of my control. I didn't know what was going on. I mean, in the back of my mind, I knew. But to be honest, at the time, Instagram wasn't a thing. TikTok wasn't a thing. Social media was not a thing. We had MySpace, Facebook, but there was not this, this is what you need to do to lose weight. This is your, magazine that tells you what. There were, but it just was not this.
It wasn't in your face the way it is now.
No, absolutely not. And so nobody really knew what was going on. And finally, one day in high school, I had a teacher say something. The guidance counselor called my parents. The nurse called my parents because teachers would start noticing. My friends started noticing. And one day, and I knew what was happening. We were talking about your daughter Davis going to Barcelona. I traveled abroad for 10 days. But in that time, I had lost so much weight. When I got back, my parents were like, oh, red flag. Yeah. So they took me to the Hershey Medical Center for Eating Disorders. And I was freaking out. I was like, I'm not going. Like, I was, first of all, I felt awful. I didn't have good circulation. My energy was awful. I had chest pain. It was a whole thing. And so when they finally took me, we walked into this center, and there's signs of, eating disorder this. And I was like, what? An eating disorder? Like, I didn't know what an eating disorder was. So I never saw this as something I wanted to achieve. It was truly what had happened to me. And so, they did blood tests and measurements and all this, and they basically gave me an ultimatum. We're going to either today, right now, put you in a hospital, or you need to get better and get healthy. And I'm such a determined, strong-willed person that I was like, we're going home and I'm gaining weight, I'm getting better. Like, we are not going inpatient. That's not a possibility. Yeah. And they're like, okay, it kind of was, I was 17, but my parents were like, all right, we'll do this. And so over that summer going into my senior year, every week I had to see a nutritionist and a doctor, and I followed a meal plan. And it was quite honestly miserable, because when your body is so malnourished, your digestion is completely whack. So you eat anything, or especially in a surplus, to gain weight. You are so uncomfortable, and your mindset is, not right. And so it was a great time, because I was like, I want to get better in a sense, but it was such a short time, whereas I had no idea that what I was experiencing would be still something I'm experiencing today. And when I say that, and I don't know how much time we have or how much depth we have and what you want to cut out and this or that.
Yeah. No.
I hate how much it has impacted my life since. I was going into college then. Through my senior year of high school, I actually would leave school early to go to Hershey. They had a evening program, an outpatient program, where I still needed help. I wasn't scary underweight anymore, but it was really, I just needed to learn, the coping mechanisms. They had occupational therapists there, nutritionists, and it was 3 hours a night where I would go eat dinner with them at the hospital. It was a group of girls, and everybody had different issues, but it was all categorized as an eating disorder. Well, I think it was so hard for me to be around other people, because it wasn't just, a skinny person, or eating disorders do not discriminate. They're half the people have some type of disordered eating. to be honest, I think everybody has.
Lizzie, Sharon and I had this conversation before, and I absolutely 100% agree with you in terms of that maybe pretty close to everyone has something that could in some way be categorized as an eating disorder.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've never
Overweight,
been
underweight.
diagnosed with an eating disorder, but I can certainly, I said to Sharon, remember when I was dating my husband and I was in my young 20s and I would get a sushi roll and I would actually take the time to use my chopstick to poke out the piece of avocado because I thought avocados were fattening and thus that would make me fat. And I am 53 years old. I'm, probably way less than I have in a long time. And I still will, come home late one night, maybe after drinking, maybe not, and, sit down in front of the TV, eat a bunch of chips, eat whatever. And, either that night or in the morning, I might say to myself in my head, oh my gosh, you fat fuck. Like, I can't believe you just ate an entire bag of chips. That's a type of eating disorder.
Yeah.
So
that's why I say it's so hard. I hate it because it's so hard to, and that we'll get into this, but it's so hard to get help for an eating disorder, and that's why the Eating Disorder Awareness Week is so important to put it out there that it is a problem. Insurance hardly covers anything. We got into an issue where, my therapy appointments were covered, but my nutrition appointments were not covered by insurance. Well, you know what you need? Like, you need both to recover. And so my parents, and thankfully they're able to afford treatment, but to say the least thousands of dollars. And that goes to say, finally my senior year after, getting help and getting to a healthy weight means nothing. And I hate to say that, but getting any weight you're at, you can be healthier at a low weight or a higher weight. If your mindset or your actions are unhealthy, it truly means nothing. And it got to the point, especially now, where, I'm a smaller person, but I'm so much healthier with my mindset as far as, I eat a variety of foods. I eat 3 meals a day. I eat snacks. And so it doesn't really mean as much to weigh myself every day, although that's something I'm in a habit with. But really what my senior year of high school, the kind of ultimatum was like, if you want to go to college, you need to weigh X amount. And I hit that weight, whatever number, the doctor said I should be at. And, I got myself to college, and I kind of support that and I kind of hate that because, okay, you gain the weight, but anybody can gain weight, anybody can lose weight. So it's like what needed to happen. And quite honestly, what happened is I got to college and I wish I could do college again. I had such a good time, but every year I struggled with something different as far as the eating disorder, whether it was isolating myself, not going out because I didn't want to consume calories, or just going out and drinking and not eating enough. People say, well, you're going to gain weight because you're drinking so much. It's not true. You can go out and drink. If you don't eat, you're going to get drunk. And for me, at least, and I can't speak for everybody else, I would wake up and lose weight because I was just...
No, people don't gain weight because of the alcohol. They gain weight because
it's all of
they
it.
lose their inhibition.
Yes, it's all of it.
And so they eat more when they're drinking alcohol. It's not the alcohol in
It's
and of
not.
itself. You're right.
The alcohol lowers the metabolism, though, too. So it is...
It all...
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not great. But, so, and then I'd say from college until now, the hardest part for me, even though the anorexia was difficult, it was what I wanted. Like, I ultimately wanted to feel hungry, lose weight. That was a success. I got a high from feeling hungry. That screwed me up because the anorexia, you can only do that for so long. You either die, and I know that's blunt, but it's the truth, and it's awful. The mortality rate is just so scary. or you're going to go the other way. And what I mean by that is a lot of people end up dealing with binge eating and bulimia, and that happened to me. And it, quite honestly, from college until I'd say a year after I met my husband, I had not told anybody that I had bulimia. So
What's the difference between bulimia and anorexia, just for our listeners?
So anorexia, at least to me, basically is restricting calories, not eating what your body needs, and ultimately losing weight and being underweight.
So when you lost the 30 pounds, what were you eating at that point on a daily basis?
So, and it's crazy to say, but that period of my life was so quick, 3 months. I mean, I had anorexia for 3 months, and then I was in recovery. You know what I mean? So like the 3 months, I was basically eating, maybe some egg whites in the morning, maybe like half a cup of Cheerios. That was before school. Lunch, I had a salad, but when I say a salad, it was lettuce. Lettuce with some dressing and an apple. That was it. And then,
But you say for 3 months you had anorexia. Do they sort of consider? A girlfriend of mine had it, and she sort of considers it the way someone would who's an alcoholic. Like, if you're an anorexic, you might be in recovery, but you're always an anorexic, sort of like being an alcoholic, but I suppose even more difficult because you don't need to consume alcohol
but
to
you
survive.
always need food.
You
Yeah.
always need to consume food, so you're always having to gauge and monitor how much you're consuming or
Right.
not consuming. Or
I would say anorexia is the diagnosis, more like the disease, but then you become, I think it's a fine line, you're anorexic for so long and then you're in recovery. And yes, I do think some people eventually are recovered. I don't think I'll ever be recovered because I don't think that is really realistic or a thing. It's kind of like trying to achieve perfectionism. Who the heck is doing anything perfect? And so
nobody.
no, not at all.
I can answer that really quickly,
Right.
emphatically. Nobody is perfect.
Right. And with anorexia, it becomes, you can have diet issues your whole life, but stay at a healthy window of weight. So you're never really, hey, you got to stop doing this. You need to take this medicine. You got to, go to these therapy meetings and these nutrition meetings. It just, there's levels. And that's why I say it's such a broad disease.
Did you feel like you were judged a lot by your friends in high school and college during this period and then still now?
No, I think a lot of my close friends were super supportive. They would take me out to ice cream in high school and there was a point, so one of the, effects of being underweight, I lost my period for about 2 years. And so I had to gain weight to get that back. And they actually, they say, your body has to be restored to be able to get that back. And so I really focused on, eating a high fat diet. And, a lot of my close girlfriends were like, we're in this with you. We need an excuse to have ice cream, but I think a lot of people are afraid to say anything. And I think a lot of people don't understand it, or it's such a stigma where it's like, ooh, like, I don't think we can talk about this. Whereas I'm like, I'm me. Like, this is just, like, it's too real to make it. Like, I'm not out there posting sob stories about my eating disorder. I'm not posting me crying or posting lengthy posts of like, okay, this is what I ate today and go me. And it's such a awful disease that the last thing I want to do is like live in it. I just want to handle it like someone who would have any kind of, disease or disorder.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned not wanting to live in it, because we just were lucky enough to have a gentleman on our podcast named Dave, who's currently been sober for just past 3 years, but he mentioned how he's not against the 12 steps. He just found for himself and his recovery that it didn't help to live it day in and day out and be going to places where everyone was just sharing their bad stories. He felt like it was toxic and negative to just be inundated day in and day out with only talking about people who have these horrible stories. And he wanted to be around sort of more positive influences,
Oh, yes.
like meditation or yoga or running or
So
Going to the gym, yeah.
yeah, and that is something people get caught up, and I don't even blame them, and a lot of people don't have the, the ambition or the support around them, the family, to really be self-motivated to get better. A lot of individuals get, and I feel so bad, some of the individuals I went to treatment with in Hershey, they're still in treatment. They're still in and out of the hospital because that's all they know. They want to be sick. They want to. That's their community. That's their safety, their comfort. And whereas it's I just want nothing to do with it. I've been that miserable, and it's so easy to talk confidently about it today. I have nights where I am so in my struggle bus that it just sucks. But again, this is why I wanted to talk about it and share, how long that this has been going on for me. But also, I am not very kind to myself, and I'm not very gentle with myself. And so being able to talk about it and being like, okay, I'm here talking to two women who, in my mind, and I don't know you very well, but who have made it in life, who have made decisions, any kind of decision that, look where we are. I mean, we're in such a beautiful area, and, with family and kids doing all these kinds of great and amazing things. This is who I want to be surrounded with, not, somewhere in a hospital with, all the struggles that, go on. And again, it's so hard to recover or work on recovery. I always say that the harder I work on recovery, the harder it is and the harder it feels, because that's just in life. The harder you work, it's going to be harder. Yeah. But it's worth it, and it's
totally worth it. But keep in mind, when you so graciously mentioned Sharon and me, and our successes in life, that, one thing I have shared with my kids my entire life is, you don't get married or then have kids and stop fucking up. You make mistakes your entire life. You just hope that you don't make the same mistakes. You hope you learn from your mistakes. But, Sharon and I were talking a little bit about, before you got here, about how you change in life, you evolve, and, you wake up every day and you want to be better. But I don't care who you are, we all struggle with, making mistakes or talking negatively to ourselves. And that's why I think it's so important doing what we do. And Sharon and I are so lucky to have each other and this podcast. And we like speaking to people like you, Lizzie, who you are a, wonderful, beautiful woman who's accomplished a lot in your, young years already, but you're perfectly, imperfect like we are, but you're not famous. You're just telling your story, and you deserve to be heard and to be seen. And that's what we love about this podcast, and why we call it Joy of the Hang, because there's, safety in numbers, and there's security. And we want to be like this group of people where we say, like, tell your story and it's okay. And we don't care what your story is or what you've done in the past or how many times you've fucked up, and we're okay with your mistakes and your ugliness and your bad things you've done, because we've done it all. And but we're all here as a group living our truth and expressing it, and it's such a relief to be able to talk about it. And
it's a relief to know you're not alone. And one of my favorite lines, you just kind of said it in one of John Legend's songs, is something about "I love you and your perfect imperfections." Right? Do you know that song
Yes.
I'm talking about? It's just like, that line just gets me every time, because I'm like, we all have our imperfections.
Perfect.
Yeah. And to love you with those perfect imperfections for who you are. Like you said earlier, you are Lizzie Thomas. You are not the eating disorder. You are not, that does not define you. It's part of you. It's part of who you are. It's part of part of you that's going to make you grow and has made you grow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a better person for it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be exactly where I am today without anything in my past. And I know that. It's so relieving to hear from both of you. Just, I can see, you're saying, it's okay if, you mess up and things are going to get dirty and uncomfortable. And that's something for me that I am so careful and so bothered by making a mistake or not being perfect, not eating clean or whatever it was in the past.
But I love your story, and not to interrupt you, and I still want to hear about what bulimia is versus anorexia, but I love the fact that, what you're sharing is so important, because we all, doesn't matter our age, we all compare ourselves to others. We're all feeling like we're not good enough, or whatever it is. Or I look in the mirror all the time. Now, I used to compete in bodybuilding competitions. I started when I was 50, and I'm still comparing myself to other women, saying, I'm not as muscular as that woman next to me. I can't lose my body fat the same way. Menopause has hit, and now I've got a stomach that I don't like looking at. I'm not 25 anymore. You still have those messages going on in your head, and the point is, you need to be the best you that you can be at this point in your life, and try to kind of close out all the other messages, right?
And then, but also not beat yourself up.
And not beat yourself
when
up.
you say a bad thing to yourself.
Right. Well, that's
because
we all do it.
We all do.
It's good to hear that, because I constantly think that it's me having these constant noises in my head, and it's something that I've learned to, you can feel anything, but you don't have to act on it. And you can feel any type of urge or uncomfortableness, but it doesn't mean you got to go do something about it, or you got to listen to the voice. And that is such, a powerful thing to learn how to cope with.
Well,
but
and that being said, I mean, when I was in college, I had the bottle of Ipecac syrup in the medicine cabinet, and I totally would throw up if I needed to get rid of some food that I just ate. So I totally get it. Like, I totally understood putting the fingers down my throat and all of that stuff, taking laxatives to help get rid of some of that. I mean, I did all of that in college because I so wanted to be a certain size or a certain look, or as pretty as the girl down that just stole my boyfriend.
Yeah.
I mean, all of those things, But I am who I am, and God made me the way He made me, and you just do the best and show up, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, that's what you do.
I think we all as girlfriends need to have like a text code, like a safe word. So Sharon, like if I text you that, whatever that word is, Ipecac, that almost be like ironic, but text you that word, and then you would immediately send me like 3 great things that you like love about me.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you just we need to see ourselves through other people's eyes, because trust me, we're harder on ourselves than anybody else.
And look at the 3 of us. We're all a bunch of skinny bitches, really.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean,
totally.
really, people would fucking hate us.
And here we are. I know.
That's to our point, Sharon, that this isn't about, everybody struggles with it. Right. So everybody struggles with, it might not be weight, but some type of self-image, or it's their job, or whatever it is. But
right. I mean, you could see me walking down the street thinking I have it all together, which I will give myself credit. I have grown, and I really do take care of myself in so many ways, but then there's 10-20% of me that still struggles so hard, but nobody would know it if you didn't have this conversation with me. And so it's like we're so quick to judge and see, and she has it so perfect, and it's
the truth is, everybody's struggling with something.
Yeah, something.
That's the truth, and that's what we learned from Dave last week when he's struggling with alcohol.
I think this is what we've learned from every guest we've had on, that you just don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I mean, we had, a guest on, my buddy Booker, who, we laughed as we talked about blowjobs and should you spit or swallow, and it was hilarious and funny.
I'm out on my run listening to it. I'm like, if somebody could hear what I'm listening to.
Lizzie, his wife, he's married to an identical twin.
Okay.
His wife has terminal brain cancer.
Oh my gosh.
So you would never
know
that he's not gonna wallow in self-pity 24/7.
Right, he's out here laughing
but
and-
you listen to that podcast and he is outgoing and hilarious, and we're talking about, blowjobs, and look what's happening behind closed doors. You just don't.
You don't.
No. So what is bulimia? What's the difference?
So bulimia is when you basically, usually when you are binging on food, and then I guess bulimia, and then there's purging. So I struggled with both. So bulimia would be overconsumption of anything. People actually have bulimia with exercising. It's not always food. However, for me, I've always over-exercised, but I'm a long-distance runner, so, there's parts of that is just my sport. However, bulimia, it got to the point where it happened gradually. I was living alone after college. I mean, it happened during college, but it wasn't, it was bad, but I'd say it got worse as the years went on. It only ever happened at night because I had not eaten much during the day, and what's going to happen? You're going to be hungry. When I think back to it, at first it was just overeating. I had this obsession with cereal, dry cereal, and I would eat it, and my body was like, oh my gosh, I need more calories, and I wasn't even intentionally doing it. And then I was like, oh wait, I feel awful. I'm so full. I've had 2 boxes of cereal. I need to get rid of this.
You literally could eat 2 boxes of cereal.
Pretty much, yeah, because I had not eaten all day.
Yeah.
So at that point,
What kind of cereal? Cheerios still?
no, no, better,
Okay.
healthy cereal, but it was sugary, very sugary. And so it's kind of like crack to someone who has dealt with anorexia and not eating enough and all that. So I went through basically, I think it was 2017, where this is, TMI, but certain foods are easier to get rid of than others. And so dry cereal is not very easy to make yourself get rid of, throw up. And so I went through a period of gaining a lot of weight. I say a lot of weight, but I got, back to where I started pretty much. But I would wake up miserably full to the point where it was the most miserable time of my life. And, it was a couple months of that. And I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. And I had mentioned to my parents, I've been having these episodes of just eating too much. But it was never, pizza or burgers. It was just one type of food. And then it got to the point where I was like, okay, I would find foods that were easier to throw up. And I'd say since 2018, much better now and much less frequently. But I had some years there where every night I was eating, and it could have just been, a little bag of chocolate-covered almonds, but I would eat them and throw it all up, go to bed. So I was losing weight because I was, I had typically normal meals, but with my activity level and then not having a snack at night because I had purged the snack, I would wake up, and every day I was losing weight. So, in I'd say I don't know what year it was, but sometime around then, ended up losing weight and, then gaining a little and losing weight. So it was just become this battle. And really what's hard is when you live alone, having this, eating disorder brain, you're so alone, and it's something to honestly to occupy your time that if you talk to a lot of people, anybody, the time that most people eat the most, especially if you're out, with friends or drinking or anything, it's nighttime. Everybody's so strong during the day with eating less, and then it will catch up to you, I moved to Baltimore City right after college. So, this whole time frame where the bulimia started, I was either with roommates or I was alone, and it just has been a constant battle. I would go out and buy, 3 pints of ice cream and just eat them just knowing that I was going to then purge. And you feel awful. You question why you're doing it, but it became such a habit that I didn't really know what I was doing. I would go to the grocery store just in like a trance. Like, I have to have this 5 minutes of enjoying ice cream, but I got to eat enough of it to make me sick, because, if you eat a little bit of it, it's the less you have in you, the harder it is to
throw up.
Yeah. And so, I would have scars on my fingers from, putting my finger down my throat and throwing up blood from scratching your throat, and just so bad. And quite honestly, those details I've never really shared, other than with, my husband now. But I remember I told my mom in, I want to say 2019 or 2020. And I called her, and without even saying what I was going through, she was like, Lizzie, you've had bulimia, right? Or, something along those lines. And I just broke down. I was like, yes, how did you know? She was like, I didn't know, but I assumed that this is something that you would deal with, and it's going to be okay. And she never, ever got mad at me. I was so scared that my parents would be upset with me, that they would yell at me, that they would, I was terrified.
Was it fear or shame, do you think, or both?
Both.
Shame's a horrible thing to have to deal with.
I was embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. It's such a embarrassing, to me, it's an embarrassing act. And we really don't talk much about it, because now that I have my husband, who is so supportive, and again, reacted the same way when I told him, he's like, we're gonna handle this. There's nothing gross about you. There's nothing, to be embarrassed about or upset. But ultimately, and something that's still, one of the reasons I struggle with having, an episode or something, would be this part of my brain that still wants to be skinny. And it's a constant nag in my brain. And for me, at least, the more I want to be skinny, I swear the worse my actions get, because I'm kind of an all or nothing, black and white person. Whereas I think if you just have this neutral idea about food is food. Doesn't really matter what you eat. Eat some healthy things, eat some treats.
Right.
But if you have this all or nothing mindset, it will screw you up.
Yeah, and a lot of people have an unhealthy relationship with food. And so when I was competing, you have to think of food as fuel for your body, and it's what your body needs for energy. And a lot of people get comfort from food or pleasure from food. So it's all about what your relationship is with food. And it really does go back to your childhood.
It does,
But you're a twin, so does your twin sister struggle with this as well?
So she never did. While I was diagnosed for a couple years in high school and college, she never had any kind of eating issue, just like I hadn't before. And then, unfortunately, she started struggling, and it was such a mind fuck. And I hated, I wanted to deny it. I didn't want to talk to her about it, because I was like, this is something that I only struggle with. This is not your disease. And I didn't want my disease, but I was like, what are you, I just was so confused, so lost. I hate that maybe I made it happen to her. And now when I say she struggled, I mean, she lost a ton of weight, but I will say, she was older. And so she got some help. And of course, my parents are the most supportive parents in the world. They're our best friends. I work with my dad. I mean, we love them so much. So they've always been there for us. But it's still something, again, we're both able to go out and eat together, and we have fun, and she's active, and we're healthy. And I'm so grateful for that now. But it does go back to think, it is who you're around. It could be genetic, but I'll say it's nothing about a beauty contest here when you're talking about an eating disorder. And that's the thing that I think bothers me with social media now, is a lot of the times, it's glamorized to eat less or be skinny. Or honestly, when I was struggling, I had no time to post, oh, this is what I'm doing. This is what you should do to be skinny. I mean, I was in my own head. I lost all my friends. They were there, but I didn't have time for them because all I had time for was eating less, not being around people.
It's a new big thing on social media now because I know Davis does it. Other people, they show what they're eating.
Right. And I think that's great. I think it's also not great because it really, you can't filter who you're sharing things with. And, I love, speaking of Davis, I love that she likes to, show what she has because she's like, hey, like, I like to eat. And a lot of people are like, well, I'm going to eat super clean and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I don't think that's real. I think it's, a highlight reel. I think it's something that people want to portray. Like, I eat so clean and this is what I eat today. And I'm like, okay,
I think it's all bullshit.
I think that's one day.
I loved the one actress, and I'm forgetting her name, because you see all these actresses in Cosmopolitan and all these different magazines, or when they're given a little clip on air on a TV show, and they say how, oh, they eat ice cream every night, but they chase their 3-year-old around, so it just falls off. And there was this one actress who said, you know what, I look at it like I pretty much get paid to not eat. And admitted what her restrictive diet is like. It's the same thing Sarah Jessica Parker, when they asked her about how she looked right away so thin and amazing after having a kid, and she said, don't compare me to the normal person. I have a nutritionist, a nanny, a trainer, and this is my job to look a certain way. I just think, be honest about it. When someone asked me recently about, losing weight, and I said, well, I'm 53 now. I had a hysterectomy right before I turned 50. It totally changed my body, what worked for me working out. And I 100% will shout it out loud, tell anyone who's asking, I consume way few calories in the end of 2024 and now currently in 2025 than I did beforehand. So I'm not going to say, I'm on this regimen and I work out and I lift weights so it burns the calories. Right. No, I don't. I drink alcohol almost every day, but I very conscientiously, I have no food off limits. I eat potato chips, pizza, but I very conscientiously eat less than I have in years past.
And that is how it works, and there is no secret or, and like I said, for me, getting diagnosed originally, it's just, I'm a huge runner, and that running is part of me and part of my life. But, I wasn't allowed to run for, a year because I was so unhealthy. And quite honestly, I was, in track practice and cross country at the time of losing weight. And, I was pretty much sidelined. So I lost all that weight not running. And so everybody thinks, run more, do this. Or it's just
calories in.
Calories in, calories out.
Yes, but in terms of also being, feeling the shame or embarrassment, I just think that just sucks. And you hope that people would not and realize, it's sort of like I just said, I drink alcohol every day and I'm 53. I should know better. I don't do shots, but occasionally I have one too many drinks and it's embarrassing and you feel like crap the next day, or you had to, do an Irish goodbye because you don't want to embarrass yourself at the bar and you feel shame and embarrassment, but it's, it happens.
I think feeling the shame and embarrassment makes it worse on us. So it's, it's like, what's that going to do? Is that really going to make any difference? No, I'm learning that.
You just try and be better.
So I did pull up a few statistics regarding eating disorders. It's such an important subject that we're talking about, because I learned that 9% of the population, or 28.8 million Americans, will have an eating disorder. So it's really a big part of the population. even worse, I was surprised to learn that every 52 minutes, so less than an hour, one person dies as a direct consequence of an eating disorder. So that was amazing to me. I didn't see what the demographic was. I'd be curious to see what age group that is. I'm assuming it's all across the spectrum. The third one that I pulled up was eating disorders have the second highest mortality rate of any psychiatric illness, just behind opiate addiction.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. Yeah.
It's mind-blowing. It's very, very serious, and it's a hidden disease.
It's so hidden, and it's so addicting. And I mean, I've been on medicine for, pretty much anxiety related, but to kind of help me go through the motions of, being able to make better choices and not have the anxiety over, I guess, meal times, et cetera. But I don't know. What was I going to say? I've learned that the more honest I am with myself, but most importantly, right now, my husband, because that's who, I'm with him every day, every night. We are together all the time. And when I'll have like a bad night or, say I end up, lately now I will say drinking makes, you're less aware of what you're doing, and your thoughts, become just not, as healthy as you need them to be. So I will notice that I end up acting on my eating disorder more when I am drinking. And so, you lose your inhibition. You think, oh, I'm going to go eat this, and I'm going to eat more so I can then purge. And, if I'm sober, I'm going to make better choices. However, not all the time. That's a pattern. But back to honesty, a lot of the times I would wake up, within the last year or two, and just being like, I don't want to tell anybody that I threw up last night. I feel I'm dehydrated. I'm miserable. Your body does not feel good after it. But then you also kind of feel good about it because you're not waking up to, a full stomach. It's just yeah. But when I tell my husband, hey, and sometimes he'll look at me and he'll kind of know, and he'll be like, you got sick last night. Or I will say, hey, Brett, last night wasn't good, and he'll be like, okay, you know what? Today's day one. And he's said it.
I love that.
He said it a lot of times. And I, the first time I said it, I'm like, yes, today is day one. And I hate that there's been many day ones. But the fact of the matter is that he's aware of it. He is a saint. He'll go clean the bathroom. It's not an accepted action, but it's real, and it is what has happened. And I want there to be a day that it doesn't happen. And, for me, I don't go out to lunch and then go to the bathroom and throw up. No, for me, that's not what I do. I want my meals. I get excited for my, my breakfast and lunch and dinner and whatever. But, there's just a part of me that it's so hidden, and the more things you hide, it's not a good thing to hide anything. I just don't want to disappoint anybody.
Yeah, well, I think it's so interesting too with now the popularity of Ozempic and Mounjaro, and so with the opposite side, where people that are overweight, right, trying to be a certain size, and now injecting themselves with these drugs, we still don't know what the long-term effects are going to be. So I think it's so interesting that there's eating disorders like you have, right, where you just want to get rid of the food, and there's another part of the population that's struggling with obesity and being overweight. And it's just interesting. It's not, my whole point of going there was people could say to you, well, just eat more. Yeah. And people could say to them, well, just eat less. Right. It's just not that simple.
No, and it doesn't heal your mind doing one or the other. And the thing is, it's a mental disorder. It's not, the aftermath and the effect is losing weight or gaining weight. But that's it. Right. Like, it is up here in your mind. Yeah. Which is very complicated. So it's, and I have a therapist that I see every so often, where I actually saw her at one of the practices that I went to through college. I went to a place called Shepherd Pratt, and they had a center for eating disorders. So I met her in college, And I actually still see her now. We're really, really good friends. We don't hang out. She's my therapist, but somebody I can confide in and see. So I give her a little shout out. But
support is everything.
Oh, yeah.
That's why, to go back to it, I just can't help myself. I feel the need to say it every time we're taping a podcast, that the importance of women supporting other women, just the sisterhood. I mean, because it's so much, we all deal with struggles, and, you don't want to go at it alone. And it's such a beautiful thing that your husband can help you. And the beauty of life is that we're allowed to reinvent ourselves, and we're allowed to make a mistake and then have a fresh start. That's the beauty of how life works. But if we as women could just look to, continually, consistently support one another and build each other up and help one another, and, accept that our friends fuck up and make a mistake, and be there for them when they say they're sorry or need to be, picked up, it's
stronger to do that than, not talk about it or, deal with it. And that's the truth.
And we also, you probably know this better than me, but this disease is mostly considered a female disease, but it's not that. It's not, yeah. There are a lot of males that also struggle with it, correct?
Yeah, no, there are, and I've met a few going through treatment. It's most definitely not. It's not a
gender specific.
No,
way.
No.
Yeah. Yep. So let's talk about your running.
Okay.
Your running, when did that enter? Was that more part of, I need to be thin, I need to lose weight, or was that an escape for you, or just a therapy? How did you start?
I started running in high school, but I remember being in elementary school. Once a year, we would have a little dinky track meet, and you could pick what you wanted to do, and I always chose the running part of the track meet. And I remember it was a 600-yard dash. It was 2 laps around the soccer field. That's less than 1 lap around a track. And I remember it was the hardest thing I would do that whole year. You don't practice for it. You're in, 3rd grade, 4th grade, but my little mind was like, I want to do the hard thing, and that would be the running. And so, really started running in high school. I did cross country and track. You didn't have to try out or anything. I mean, I was a figure skater. I did basketball, all of that. So I was always very athletic. But through all of that, I really stuck with running. And then really got serious with it. I'd say my senior year. Again, I was going through treatment and everything, and my coach was so sweet, but he was like, you tell me when you're ready. I remember not being able to compete in the first cross-country meet, but then I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm still underweight, but I'm taking care of myself, and I would be able to run the track meets, and I got so much better than the year before. So, in college, I went to Towson University, and I could have been on the cross-country team. However, I wanted that full college experience. And with me and running, I don't follow a plan. I've never had a running coach. I like to do exactly what I want to do. I do not like people telling me what to do at all.
She's more like you than I thought.
Yeah, I never followed up.
She's more like Lauren.
Yeah, I'm like, and I wanted to go out.
Do you wear trucker hats too?
I don't. But
we need to get you a trucker.
I will say,
a Hooters shirt.
we were driving down. Well, Hooters. I'm a Hooters girl, because when I was little, we would go to Hooters all the time. Like my grandfather would, and my grandma. My grandma to this day, she will tell me that when I was in elementary school, my sister and I would say that we wanted to be Hooters girls when we grew up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember saying that. So, but I mean, that was authentic us. So, but yeah, so college, I ran, I'd say every other day, nothing crazy. But just, I was healthy with it in college. I didn't do, anything major, but I ran, every day, every other day. And then after college, I just really decided I wanted to do a half marathon, and did my first half marathon in 2015. 15. Yeah, that's when I graduated college. And I loved it. And from there on, I mean, I've progressed over the years, and since then I've ran, I don't know how many half marathons. I mean, I run a half marathon once a week just on my own, but as far as an official half marathon, I don't know how many, but I ran my first full marathon in 2019.
Which one did you do?
The Baltimore Marathon was my first marathon, and I was living in the city at the time, and the race starts and ends in the city, so it was pretty iconic for me. And I got third female, and my first marathon time was 3 hours and 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's insane.
And yeah, and so it was the perfect day. Everything was great. I was so happy. And then since then, I qualified for Boston. I got to run Boston. I've ran Baltimore again, and then my last marathon was the Ocean City, Maryland marathon. We go to Ocean City Marathon as a family a lot, and so that was really cool. And my time was 2:54, so I got first place. And
First
fastest
place, wow.
I ever did was 3:57. The Long Beach,
okay,
California
I mean,
marathon.
but I always say, and my husband will attest to this, I always say a mile is a mile, no matter how fast or slow you walk it, you run it. I mean, just think, you were out there longer than me. You ran longer than me. So it's like, however you twist it, the time on your feet. I've never ran for 3 hours and 50.
Well,
so
I'm
it's
curious
just
then if you do the same thing. I mentioned having the negative talk to yourself. My last marathon and my only international one was 2020. I did the Paris Marathon.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was my most fun and also my longest. I hadn't run in well over a year.
Okay.
I ran it in 4 hours, 57 minutes. But when I run marathons, I usually hang up my medal on my rearview mirror.
Okay.
So I'm looking at it when I'm driving, and I say, I am on the most unbelievable high for a month, because when I finish and I get that medal, there is no space for anything negative in my head except you fucking rock. You just ran 26.2 miles.
Well,
it's such a high for me, and I think to myself, why can't I have this area in my brain reserved for only these positive thoughts?
Okay, you saying this is just, I feel it. I know exactly what you're saying. And that truly is, I run 6 days a week. I typically take one day off and do, anything, either the stairs or the elliptical. I need something to move my body, but less impact. But the days that I run, I typically run about 12 miles a day. Sometimes it's 10, 11. Usually 12 is my number. But I feel that way every morning after my run. And so it's, people wonder, why do you run so much? You're crazy, you're, this and that. And I truly love it. And it's truly given me, I always say this, but it's truly given me more and more life. There was a time in my life I wasn't able to run, and I wasn't allowed to run. I couldn't run. I physically could not run. And so even the days that if I have, a bad night of, binging and purging, I will not run the next day because I'm depleted. My energy is awful. I have a headache and all that. So, and again, that's more infrequent than frequent. But, for the most part, when I'm running, 70 miles a week, after those runs, I'm like, Lizzie, you took care of yourself yesterday, and you took care of yourself last night. And that doesn't mean you didn't eat a lot or you ate clean. No, that means maybe I, went out and had a couple of drinks and a piece of pizza. Or maybe it was I had, a healthy stir fry that I made at home. But whatever I did it in a normal capacity that allowed me to wake up and pound those miles. And so that's addicting. And so that's why running for me, my therapist, who I said I've seen since college, she's like, I typically would not prescribe, long distance running to any of my clients. And she said, Lizzie, but you're different. And she's like, at first I didn't know how this was going to work. I wasn't sure, and she's like, you are okay with it. And it's
I think
whoa.
everyone has their thing. Some people love the yoga. For me, it's great for my body, loosening me up, what have you. But when I do yoga, my mind's still racing.
Mm-hmm.
I go on a long walk on the Legacy Trail here. Today I walked 10 miles.
Oh my gosh.
Which I love to do. I haven't run in a very, very long time, but a lot of times I have to suddenly be like, wait, where am I? Because I've zoned out. Because for me, that's my yoga. That's my meditation. I don't know.
Do you listen to music or a podcast or anything?
I don't.
No.
I
Wow. I love walking after.
Out, and I don't listen to anything, just probably from years ago, just being sort of taught when I was a runner, this safety of you don't want to be, not be able to hear someone coming up behind you or notice a car that's going through.
Very true. Very true.
So I don't do anything, but it sometimes almost freaks me out how I'll be like, oh my God, I'm here already. Like, where was I just? But that's the beauty of why I do it, because I'm able to zone out and my mind's fresh and clear.
You feel so clear after.
Yeah.
Well, we're sadly running out of time, but I do want to talk. You said you became a bonus mom when you married your husband. So he has 2 children?
Yes, he does. So when I met him, he wasn't divorced yet. He was separated, but it was pretty recent. And he told me that he had twins and they were 2 years old. And he said, I have a boy and girl. I said, oh my gosh, I'm a twin.
Stop. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So we were standing there in front of the grocery store where we met, and he, was talking, and I was like, wow, that's just crazy. And so he asked for my number. And of course I was like, I've seen him a couple times at the grocery store working as, like I said, he's a retired police officer. He was working a security shift, and he was just a beautiful man. And so when he finally said something to me, I was just like, oh my gosh, like finally, and so he got my number. And then
so you mentioned that he talked to you in the entryway of the grocery store, but you'd seen him before.
I had seen him but not talked to him, so maybe 2 or 3 times, because that was my grocery store. So you go shopping and you see the cop in the front of the...
Sorry, guys, it wasn't like out of a movie. She was not in the produce aisle.
Well, the produce is in front of the store, so technically...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, but...
Squeezing those kids.
And I remember I got his number, and I remember walking out to my car, and I called my mom, and I tell my mom everything, and I said, oh my gosh, Mom, I just met the hottest cop, and I was like, he's divorced, he has twins, and she was like, oh, Lizzie, like, okay, like, stop, like, you're silly, like, that's a lot. And in my mind, I was like, okay, red flag, like, divorce, kids, he's 10 years older than me. There's just this automatic, like, okay, this isn't gonna happen. And then I met him out for drinks, and I was like, I just remember seeing him, and his eyes, he has these beautiful blue eyes, they just lit up. And he genuinely looked, I've never seen a happier person. And he was so happy to embrace me and see me. And it sounds so cheesy, but I just felt his warmth. And
that's not cheesy at all.
It was just this automatic comfort. And so we got to talking, and I'd say when we met in about April of 2019, we finally, I said no for a while, and I was like, no, I'm not doing this. And finally, I remember being down here in Longboat Key, and I text him and set up like, hey, like, let's go grab a drink or something. And we did, and it was just, it was that, right when we got a drink and hung out, I'm like, this is who I'm going to be with. There was no question. I had no interest in anybody else. And with Brett having 2 children, I met them, and they were 2 years old. We were over at Brett's house, and they walked in, and they were, in diapers, but they were stunned, like, who's this, And these tiny little, preemie babies, 2 years old, but they're still my babies. They're 8, but they're still my babies. And I just fell in love with them. Truthfully, I've never thought I wanted to have children. It wasn't, I love babies. I will hold any baby and give it right back. But
See, and I've had 3 kids, and I'm like, no, thank you. Literally, someone will say, oh, do you want to hold him or her? And I'm like, no.
That's funny. It's funny how everybody's different with that. But I don't have many babies in my life, so I can't say I've even held that many babies. But when I met them, it got to the point where I was like, I am either here or I'm not. Like, I can't be in their lives and then just, in a couple months be like, no, never mind. Or like in a year, that you can't.
Bond with them at
right.
that age.
Yeah. So I'd say October 4th of 2019, Brett, his divorce was finalized, and we always call it 10-4, which we say 10-4 over and out because he was a cop, and 10-4 was the day we started dating, officially dating. So, it's been like that. We, were together until 2023, and we got married, and, the kids were in our wedding, and Eva was our flower girl, and Camden, our son, was our ring bearer, and it was the best day ever. And they are my little angels. I love them so much. It's just wild to think that I'm a mom. It doesn't feel right. And I'm definitely not a stepmom. Like we've never said that. We've just said Lizzie, like this is Lizzie.
Yeah.
And a mom is a mom is a mom.
Oh,
yeah. And listen, they have a great relationship with their mom. We have, it's a perfect setup. It truly is. And I'm so thankful for everybody involved. I want them happy wherever they are. So we have them half the week. They're with their mom half the week. And
do you get along with their mom?
yeah.
You're so lucky.
That's
Awesome.
right. It's so mature.
We're very
co-parent in that way.
Yeah, I mean, we don't
Yep.
chit chat, but we're there for the kids, and that's the most important part. I think it's a blessing because, trust me, I know that's not the case for many people.
It is a blessing. It's also a blessing for the kids to have
Yes.
positive adult role models in their life.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, and so we're going to take them down here for their first time in April. We're going to be staying in Longboat with my parents, and they've never flown on a plane yet, so they're doing that.
Do the whole Disney thing?
So we were thinking about it. I don't think we'll have enough time, but I grew up as a Disney girl. We went to Disney World every single year until I went to college, and now I'm like, okay, like that was enough, but loved it. So
Hot and crowded.
yeah, but they motivate me to be a better person because I also, as they get older, they see what I'm doing, and I want to be their role model. And, I don't want to be the mama who's sick or doing unhealthy actions. And so it really does make you step up and, mature a little bit. And, none of my friends have kids.
It does, but give yourself grace.
Thank you.
You'll
Thank you.
You'll make mistakes. I mean, I said I don't do shots anymore, but
I do.
About 2 years ago, we were riding bikes, my son, my husband, and I, and we were at the Clam Factory in Bradenton, and I had 2 shots, and I could not ride my bicycle home. And in fact, I insisted on riding it, and my husband had to take the seat off. So I would walk it and not ride it.
You were determined to
ride it.
ride it.
Not my proudest moment. I mean, I was there with my son, and yes, he was like 1 years old at the time, but not my proudest moment. But, we discussed it. We, agreed that it's not safe to ride a bicycle. You obviously don't ride a car, but it's
You don't
not
drive a
safe
car,
to
yeah.
ride a bicycle
Same thing,
after
yeah.
you've been drinking. But just definitely, give yourself grace and realize
But also,
that
it's okay for our kids to see us not perfect.
Yes.
It's okay for
Absolutely.
Our kids to
That's
see
really
us
a good
and
point.
Address it.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Yep.
For then, it opens up that conversation.
100%.
The honesty, the openness, like I was
Honesty,
saying. Yeah.
openness.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if they put you on this pedestal and that's not reality,
It's not reality.
Yeah.
yeah, it's like you said, we're all going to screw up time and time again.
Yeah. It's a learning curve.
It so is. It's so
Sharon fucks up all the time, and I'm still really good friends with her. So
never fuck up. Okay, I am the definition of perfect.
Sharon, you are.
So not. So not. So we always ask our guests, you've heard because you
Yes.
listen to the podcast, what would be the advice that you would give your younger self?
I was thinking about this yesterday on my run. I'm like, what am I going to say? Ultimately, I came up with to worry less. I grew up a huge worrier over just anything, and I'm still a worrier. That's me. I worry about my family. I worry about, the safety of everyone. I'm always, my family is a big, we say I love you after every phone call. It's, text me when you're home, be safe. It's a big worry. And I remember being little, asking my dad, how long are you going to live? It's just that's a thing. But my mom has always taught me worrying does not do anything. It doesn't help anything. It hurts. And usually what you worry about does not happen. So it's something you got to kind of, when you have a worry, just stop it. I don't think I'm not going to not have the worries, but it's to have the worry and then cut it off. Yeah. But yeah, just growing up, I would tell myself to worry less and to give myself grace and be kind to myself, which is easier said than done. But I see the picture of myself when I'm little and I'm like, yeah, she deserves to just be carefree and happy. So
I love that. And that's what they say. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you react to it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, a lot of stuff is out of our control. That's it for this episode. Oh, one more thing. If somebody wants to find out more about eating disorders, where can we send them to find out more information?
The National Eating Disorder Awareness organization has a website. I think it's just NEDA.com, possibly, or if you just Google that, it will come right up. So, it explains, here's the signs of what to look for with a loved one or yourself. There's hotlines. So there is so much help out there. But just, again, not being afraid to reach out. And again, if anybody hears this podcast and has a question that I can help with, that I can send, hey, here's a reference, anything. Just keeping this conversation open and keeping everybody aware of, the reality, but then also, hey, here I am, someone who has made it through some really tough times. It doesn't define me.
Thank you very much. That was well said. And so if anybody out there is struggling with an eating disorder or knows anybody who they think might be, please reach out for help. It's out there for you, and we want you all to be well. So with that, peace out, Lauren.
Peace out, Girl Scout.
Peace out, Lizzie.
Bye.
Bye.